NYPD's on the lookout for suspects in a pair of unprovoked attacks on the elderly. Check this out from Tuesday. Video showing a 68-year-old Asian woman being punched in the head as she stood outside of a flower shop. The beating coming only days after a 70-year-old woman was slapped in the face in broad daylight in Midtown Manhattan. That was on Tuesday afternoon. Joe Borelli's a New York City Councilman. Joe, welcome here. Good morning to you. What's happening in this town?
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
What's going on?
Look, I mean, we are seeing an unprecedented rise in crime that's been occurring over the past few years, and we have to look back at what the catalysts are. 2 years ago, Democrats who govern this city and govern this state made a radical decision to start dismantling our law enforcement traditions and our criminal justice procedures, and the result has been the spike in crime. And until we see really a change at the top, until we see things like bail reform, be reformed itself, and bail be given to inmates, we're not going to see a change for the better.
Okay, here are your numbers, right? Murders to 2021, you're at 245. This is for the 1st of August, by the way. You're at 245 as compared to the year prior. Rapes, 842. Felony assault, 12,481. The problem is I live here and I don't see an end to this.
No, again, I mean, until police officers can rest assured that the people they lock up are not going to be let out and let off Rikers Island before their police tour is over, you're not going to see the results. We've had this fundamental dismantling of the police department. We've had to defund the police. We've ended our undercover anti-crime teams. It's good to hear people like Eric Adams say and vow that he'll restore these anti-crime teams, these undercover units, but realistically, until the state makes necessary changes and reforms the law, even if we catch people, they're going to be let out very early. If we caught those two guys who were recently shown in that video on the back of mopeds shooting into a crowd, if we caught those people just before they fired those rounds, they would have literally been let out on bail reform law. So the police really have their hands full because the criminal justice system is not following through.
Yeah, here's how Bill Bratton put it, former New York City Police Commissioner, on our show yesterday. Give it a listen.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of very bad people in our society, and they need to be separated from the rest of us. And currently, the progressive left is really pushing the idea of alternative types of treatment rather than incarceration. If you've been arrested 90 times, if you've been arrested carrying a gun, we need to keep those people away from society.
I think he states it so well, Joe, and as you say, the trend is going that way. Did you get a sense that it's coming back?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. Look, he's right. Even in the most crime-plagued neighborhoods, it's 1%, it's 2% of people, fractions, committing all the violent crime. The mayor earlier this year announced that Rikers Island had the lowest population since World War II. If that corresponded with the lowest crime and crime victim numbers we've ever had since World War II, we'd all be praising Bill de Blasio. But in truth, we're making arrests, letting people out, and it is 100% the radical AOC wing of the party that is doing this. Thankfully, I mean, you have people that like Eric Adams and like Curtis Lee, were running on the Republican ticket, who are both saying we're not going to take this much longer and we're going to vow to restore criminal justice in New York City.
Well, you're aware of what's going on in L.A. with the DA out there, and you wonder whether or not the new DA here in New York is going to do something similar. Bratton says there's a lot of very bad people in our society. They need to be separated from the rest of us. You describe a very small percentage, right?
Sure. I mean, we know. I mean, the Manhattan Institute is going to come out with a study this month that shows that 1% of the blocks in New York City account for 25% of the crime, and I think 5% of the blocks account for 50% of the crime. So we really do have ways to identify where this is going to happen, who the people likely are, and we do have the resources and expertise to go after them. Politicians made the decision to dismantle units like the anti-crime teams, who are actually going out there performing aggressive and proactive policing and lowering the crime numbers. The police department didn't of themselves come up one day and do that. They were pushed by progressive policymakers who now run New York State. So until we make a significant change in government, we should expect more of the same. I hope there's some light at the end of the tunnel, but until the voters essentially choose to do that, we're going to get more of the same.
Wow, Joe, interesting thoughts there. Thanks for coming on. We'll check back in with you. I know you got a strong piece in the Daily News about COVID and where we're headed with that as well. So we will check that out soon. Thank you, Joe. Joe Borelli here in